Welcome back to Thai Learning Lifestyle. So this video, I just got done filming a real estate video and I had some extra battery left on my phone. I was like, what the heck? I've been thinking about making this video. So I'm just gonna talk briefly about the top 3 things that makes the Thai language by far the hardest language that anybody could possibly learn, including for myself. And the number one problem with the Thai language and making it very difficult for people to actually learn this language well is gotta be the lack of resources in the English language for people to learn. So your number one barrier of entry to a language is going to be the resources that you have available to you to actually learn that particular language. So if you don't have quality materials, you don't have a book with audio, you don't have anything that gradually progresses to bring up your level, there's no way you're going to come to that level of expertise in the language itself. So as a lot of language enthusiasts, learners, people who enjoy languages in general, I enjoy the Asimil series. And at one point I did purchase the old Asimil book. I'll put a picture of it here. That book was absolutely terrible. The audio was bad, the font was bad, the presentation was bad. That Asimil Thai book had to be one of the top 5 worst Asimil books that I ever owned in my entire life. And put in perspective, another book that's terrible by Asimil is that Korean book, the old one. That one's very terrible as well. But fortunately for Korean, there's tons of other language materials for you to learn the language, but not with Thai. So we had older books like the Thai Teach Yourself that's very practical, teach you how to buy things, ask for directions, the basics that you would learn from any particular language. There is the Thai for Beginners book that is also a very nice beginner friendly book. But what I'm getting at is that once you get past the beginner stage, yes, you can introduce yourself, the colors, you can count, you can buy things, you can ask for directions. What do you do after that? There is an intermediate Thai book from Becker. There's an advanced reader from Becker. But other than that, your Thai resources drastically drop off. I studied Japanese in university for, 3 years, and there was tons of books. So put in comparison, when I studied Japanese at university, I got Genki 1 and 2, went through those books at university. And when it came time for me to learn on my own, yeah, we had the Asimil book, but there's tons. There was intermediate Japanese, there was advanced Japanese, there's Japanese shadowing books, there's Japanese workbooks, there's kanji workbooks, there's tons and tons of information for Japanese. When it comes to French, that language itself had tons of amazing resources to help you learn the French language. When I studied Russian, there is the Russian step-by-step, there's Russian Asimil, there's Russian Teach Yourself, colloquial Russian, it just kept going and going. There's textbooks for intermediate Russian, there's textbooks for advanced Russian. You always had a formal way of learning a language that was gradual, because you need that gradual approach. And this is where I'm getting at with Thai. There's tons of beginners materials for the Thai language, but once you get past the beginner stage and you go to the intermediate stage, it drastically drops off. So it leaves you around this area of an A1, A2 level, and you're not going to be able to get to B1, B2, and you're talking about C1, good luck, because you gotta remember, so if you're going from an A1, A2 level, is your only option going to be native material? No, you're not going to be able to understand the native material, so it becomes background noise to you. You're never going to pick up the actual language itself. So back about 10 years ago, I bought me, I was like, maybe I'll learn Thai, long time ago. And I just learned really quickly that the resources weren't there. So I just gave up that challenge altogether. I, did a brief overview okay, what do these books look like? I quickly realized that I had no great resources to learn Thai, especially 10 years ago, but now things are slightly different. I do have the newer Asimil book that I'm using. It's only in French. It comes with a lot of audio. It's way better than the previous book. When you turn the pages, the font's better, the presentation's better, the audio is 10 times better in the new Asimil book. But again, it's only in French. If you don't know the French language, you may struggle going through this particular book. And the Asimil program says it's going to leave you at the B2 range. I doubt that. I'm planning on being around an A2 level after 1 year of self-study through the book itself. But fortunately now that I didn't have 10 years ago is these like YouTube channels that are like slow Thai or comprehensible Thai, where it's spoken in a very clear intonation, very slowly. You can gradually progress that way. Again, repetition is going to be very important. So if you're just looking at YouTube channels and you're not watching the same thing over and over, it's going to be very hard to remember those words, remember those things. So it's very important when you pick your resources, you are very, very consistent with them and you're not overwhelming yourself with resources. So again, still on the topic of resources here. I know it's a ramble, it's a spontaneous video, but I want you to be aware that there are some resources now for the Thai language. Beginner level was never a problem. The intermediate, you can get through it with the YouTube now and extra help that way. The advanced level, so say if you're going all the way to B2, C1 level in the Thai language, an advanced level, that's where things are going to get much, much difficult very quickly. That's why right now I'm actually working on some language learning material with a few of my Thai friends to record things and sentences, because there's pretty much nothing currently on the market for an advanced Thai learner, and I'm already preparing to get to that level maybe in year 3, 4 of learning this particular language. So I'm already working on getting the proper material that I would need to learn the language by working with native speakers and putting things together. But again, the number one reason why the Thai language is probably one of the hardest languages to learn is because of the lack of good resources. Number 2 reason why the Thai language is probably one of the hardest languages to learn is that it's very inconsistently placed into the Latin alphabet. So I'm over here, I'm using primary just Asimil, but when I go to these other YouTube channels and they have, you know, the Latin alphabet below of the Thai script, it's very different than my Asimil book. And if I skim through Becker, the beginner's Thai book, it's not consistent. It's not like Pinyin where it's standardized. It's all over the place. And you have these unique sounds in the Thai language that we don't have in English or French. And they're trying to transcribe that into something we can understand from the Thai sounds. And it just doesn't work well. So when you're looking at these words, you're like, is this a new word? What's going on? Is it just spelled incorrectly? You don't know how to spell it yet. And as mentioned in the first part of this series, I was delaying learning the Thai alphabet because the Thai alphabet, again, going back to this lack of proper translation between Thai and English alphabet, is actually a very difficult alphabet to learn. So put in perspective, I've learned multiple alphabets during my language learning career. So I've learned the Japanese alphabet. They had the kanji, hiragana, katakana. That wasn't a problem. So it took time. There's logic behind it. It was cleanly organized, but it wasn't a problem. I've learned the Russian alphabet. I went to a Russian church for a few years, got to learn Russian with the kids there. The Russian alphabet wasn't a problem. Even some of the letters at first will look like they would be like in the English language. And you might make the sounds incorrectly at first, but you quickly got used to the alphabet. I had some Korean friends. I've learned Hangul. Again, a very logical alphabet, no problem. At one point, I wanted to learn a little bit more about Arabic culture. I went to a mosque it was only for a few months, but even the Arabic writing, even though it was slightly difficult, wasn't as bad as the Thai alphabet. There's something about the Thai alphabet and the Western mindset, maybe it just causes it to be very, very difficult to read and write this alphabet for some reason. Something about the Thai script and the brain of a lot of Westerners, it just doesn't seem, something doesn't click correctly. And I also noticed when I was teaching my daughter, so I'm learning Thai, I'm trying to teach my daughter Thai as well, and we have this chart that shows you all the letters of the Thai alphabet. And we got to this section of the chart and she just sees W. and she's having a hard time even seeing the differences between the letters, even as a child, without too much of the bias. She does know the Latin alphabet, obviously, but she's struggling now learning the Thai script as well as a child. So the Thai script, along with no correct romanization, Romanji, whatever you want to call it, it makes the Thai language so much more difficult, because when you're going to outside materials, if you have one standard textbook, like I have the Ask Meal book, and I'm going to Becker, nothing matches up. If I go on YouTube and it's, transcribed below, nothing matches up. So it's going to be a language where if you're starting out, don't go to multiple materials, because you're never going to learn the material properly because of all the alphabet issues. That is by far the second hardest reason, and probably the hardest part of the Thai, and probably one of the hardest parts is going to be that alphabet. There's something about it, I don't know how to describe it. It's just so different, so many rules with the tones, and once you get to actually reading it, I believe there's no exceptions, but it's a lot, this alphabet. And number 3 reason why the Thai language can be difficult is that Thai itself is not a widely studied language. And what I mean by this is that the native Thai speakers are not used to different foreigners speaking their language to them. So if you're not, 95% the way there in pronunciation, they're going to act like they have no idea what you're saying. They're not used to any accent. So if you ever been like on the phone and you call customer support and somebody comes on the phone, they have a very thick accent, and it's hard to understand them, but you've understood this accent so much, you've heard so many people try to speak English, that you get used to an accent and you're okay with it. But now you're in a place where if you speak to a Thai speaker who's in Thailand, they may not understand you if they've not dealt a lot with foreigners from abroad, and you may be saying the word almost correctly, but they're very sensitive to the vowel sound. So, and say like ma versus mak, it's very different. You really have to draw out those vowels so much longer, because they're not used to people pronouncing those words, and they have a few endings to their sentences that are very different than we have in our English, such as their K sounds, like ma. They stop it. You can't mak. They act like they don't understand what's going on. And, granted, you are saying it wrong, but because they're not used to dealing with people who are learning their language, speaking their language, it's so much more difficult for them. That's why if you're going to try and get a language exchange partner, it's best for people, who have a little experience with language exchange. If you're just dealing with people who just primarily speak with Thai people as well, it's going to be very difficult to practice your language with them, and you might become very discouraged. And this is the part where, if you're starting off and you feel like you can't do anything right, it may drastically affect your language learning career. Don't feel that way. Your pronunciation will get better. One thing it does, it takes a lot of time, and you're going to get this through listening and repeating along. So it's, when you're a kid, you might have sing-alongs. With Thai, you're going to have to listen to a script over and over until you get it down 95, 100% the way there, with the tone, intonation, and putting right stress on the vowels, so you get properly understood when you're talking to the natives. Again, I just want to make this video off the cuff. I was had some extra time from my real estate videos, and I hope you enjoy this, and I hope your Thai learning goes well, and keep fighting. Take care.